So let's check in on the current state of the race. It's Monday. That means Éric Grenier is here. He is the author of the Writ.ca, and he also runs the CBC poll tracker. You can see him there arriving on set. Éric, good to see you. When we checked in with you last week, the Liberals were polling ahead of the Conservatives by about 6 points. Where are we with 2 weeks to go?
Pretty much the same place. We haven't really seen much movement. So if we take a look at where things stand right now in the poll tracker, which brings together all the polls that are being published throughout this campaign, the Liberals are still at 44% support. And nationally, the Conservatives are at 38%, so it's a 6-point gap between the two parties. The New Democrats are just under 9% support across the country, the Bloc Québécois at 5%, and the Greens at 2.4%. So that 6-point gap that we've seen between the Liberals and the Conservatives for the last few weeks, it does seem to be holding pretty firm.
Okay, so this all points to Liberal majority right now. So walk us through the seats. What does the seat projection look like?
Yeah, with these kinds of numbers that we see across the country, we do project that the Liberals would win a majority government. So if we take a look at where the seat projection stands right now, we do have the Liberals in majority territory. We're at 198 seats for the Liberals right now, with a range of between 179 to 215. So that is including, it's all majority territory. Conservatives are at 123 with between 107 and 136 seats. So more or less where they were in the last election. Bloc Québécois looks like they could drop half of their caucus down to 16. The New Democrats at 5 with a range of between 2 and 14, and 1 for the Greens between a range of 0 and 2 for the Green Party.
Okay, all right. We're bringing back the map here, Éric, as it's acting up a little bit today, but we're going to try to see if it'll work. I want to focus in on Quebec because this is a key fight right here in terms of what you talked about, the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois, primarily here in the greater Montreal area. You can see all the red here on the island of Montreal. That's Alexandre Boulay-Reese, and that's Le Salle-Mare. That's the one that the Bloc won in that by-election. But, Éric, it's this North Shore and this South Shore. When you look at the numbers and how they're breaking down in Quebec, the Liberals, to really increase their chances at a majority, they got to turn some of this red. How does this play out? It
looks like that could happen. Even the island would get swept red, except for maybe Boulay-Reese's seat. But in Quebec right now, it is a big lead for the Liberals. They now have 43% support in the province. And in second place is not the Bloc right now. It is the Conservatives. The Conservative vote is up from the last election. They're at 24%. They're not going to win anything in and around Montreal, but they could pick up some seats around Quebec City area. The Bloc Québécois is right now at 22%, so they're down quite a bit. That's putting them down to that 2011, 2015 level of support they had. And the NDP quite further back with 6% support in Quebec at the moment.
Okay, all right. Now, I want to look at Ontario because this is kind of the ballgame. I want to focus on two distinct areas. One, of course, look, the GTA, right? This is downtown Toronto. That is the Toronto-St. Paul seat that the Conservatives won in the by-election. I'm going to zoom out. Let's see if I can get the map to cooperate with me here. Zoom out a little bit because really, it's less about Toronto, right, Éric? It's more about this, right, the 905. The numbers that you're seeing, this is where the Liberals need to, this is where the Conservatives need to really gain if they're going to get to the 65, 70, 75 seats they're going to need in Ontario. What do the numbers tell us about that part?
They do not suggest that the Conservatives are in a position to make those kinds of gains right now. If we look at where things stand in Ontario at the moment, the Liberals have a big lead in the polls, and it's one of the reasons why they're so far ahead in the seat projection. 49% support for the Liberals right now in Ontario. And the Conservatives are 11 points back at 38%. The NDP is at 9% support in the province. So this is a bigger gap than we saw between the Liberals and the Conservatives in the last election. So if the Conservatives were going to be able to close the gap at all, win some of those seats in the GTA, particularly those in the Western GTA, so Peel region and Halton, they would need to be a lot closer in the Ontario-wide numbers, and we just aren't seeing that. We have seen some polls recently that have a bit of a tighter margin nationally, but we have not seen that happen in Ontario just yet.
Right, this is the key thing. The regional numbers kind of tell the story. I want to focus on one more region of Ontario, and I want to show there is a lot of blue in this part. Southwestern Ontario, right, with the focus on Donald Trump, this is the most trade-exposed, pound-per-pound part of the country. Auto sector, you know, basically from Hamilton down to Windsor. The New Democrat vote, Éric, we don't know where it's going to go. Probably favors the Liberals if it does go anywhere. What do you make of this particular region of Ontario based on the digits that we're seeing in the polling?
Yeah, based on the numbers we see in Ontario, with the Liberal number so high and the NDP number so low, I mean, some of that is going to come from places where the NDP already holds the seat. Right now in the seat projection, the 3 seats that we have that the NDP is competitive in is Windsor West, London Fanshawe, and Hamilton Centre. Those were the 3 orange seats that you saw on that map. Is their NDP vote going to be concentrated in those ridings, or is it actually going to continue going over to the Liberals like we've seen in the polls? If so, the Liberals could pick up some of those seats. They would have been maybe Conservative seats in the past. especially in London and Windsor. But with this huge increase in support for the Liberals in Ontario, it seems more likely that a lot of those NDP voters might be going over to the Liberals.
Okay, I wiped out all the color because this is where we are right now, 2 weeks to go. So just one last question for you, Éric. I mean, the main party leaders, French debate on Wednesday, English debate on Thursday. What are you watching for there in terms of the ability of these moments to change the course of the election?
I think it's actually going to be what's going to happen with, certainly the Pierre Poilievre and Marc Carney battle is going to be the one that everybody's going to be looking at. But what's going to happen with Jagmeet Singh and Yves-François Blanchet? Because Singh used the 2019 English language debate to save the NDP's campaign in that election. And Blanchet has used both of the 2019 and 2021 debates. In 2021, it was the English language debate, oddly enough, but it saved their campaigns. And for Pierre Poilievre, he would love to grab some points away from Marc Carney, but he would love even more to see that NDP number go up and that Bloc number go up, because with the Liberals at 40+ support in the polls, they win a majority government.
Yeah, and there's only so much of that Poilievre can take away. He needs the others to squeeze them. All right, Éric, thank you so much to Éric Grenier, author of the RIT.ca and the keeper of the CBC poll tracker. Rob, let's start with you there. I mean, what do you make of where this race is at this stage? When you look at sort of, there's a static gap in the top line polls, but all the regional splits right now, they kind of favor the Liberals in a pretty meaningful way.
I thought that we began to see another evolution in the Conservative campaign, which I think is very interesting. If you watched Tout le monde en parle, if you watch the media that Mr. Poilievre did on YouTube, he did a couple of YouTube podcasts, he showed lifelike tendencies. He got off the message track. He was there with his wife. He talked about his kids. He talked about his special needs daughter. It was a side of Pierre Poilievre that is rarely seen. And I thought it was effective campaigning. If you look at what Mr. Carney and the Liberals have done, I thought they were needlessly sleepy the last couple of days. Now, everybody understands what's going on. Right now, they're in debate prep. Yeah. Massive debate.
And he's got to work on his French and be ready to go.
And it looks like that work has paid off. If you watch Tout le monde en parle, I thought that his French was, I wouldn't call it fluid, but he wasn't searching and trying to seize and grasp for words, right? It was a little bit more fluid. He understood the questions. He got a cultural reference to Roque Belles Oreilles. He got that right. But what they're doing is debate prep. I understand that. But it looks like the Liberals are playing out the clock a little bit the last few days, whereas Mr. Poilievre is doing policy and he's doing these podcasts and, again, showing this different side, which I think is noteworthy. I was in British Columbia last week. Fascinating. Again, I went there because of Éric. He suggested I go to a riding in Abbotsford, one of the most conservative ridings in the country. And what I saw there was fascinating. The Liberals, if they had an energetic campaign going, could actually take one of the most conservative ridings in the country, because there's a split on the right. There are very angry Conservatives there, angry for two reasons. Angry because of Western alienation. They feel like they're getting sort of pokered out again by the population in Ontario and Quebec, and there's talk of secession there. But there is some anger towards the Conservative campaign, that it is too extreme for some of the people there. And they split the vote there. I spoke to Mike de Jong, who's still mystified as to why he...
Yeah, he was not allowed to run for the nomination after being a Liberal, the Conservative bent Liberal finance minister provincially for multiple years.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I found it to be in very... Like the NDP vote, what vote is there is collapsed. Very much a microcosm of the country, and a fascinating trip.